Hey guys, Tim Richardson here. Welcome to our little webinar here on what to expect when you're expecting to buy an RV. If you're not even thinking about buying an RV, then you're in the wrong place. But I brought in an expert. This guy, Mycah Grandstaff, has been helping a lot of people with a lot of RVs over the years. So thanks, Mycah, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us and answer all the tough questions. So folks, find the chat area. This is where you're going to ask questions throughout. Tell us where you're watching from, though. This will be fun. Just let us know, like, the city, and we'll do some shout outs as we get everybody in here and get rolling. So, but yeah, the chat's where you're going to ask questions. The goal is to stump Mycah by the end of our time here, and we're going to have some fun with that. But no, we have a lot to learn. Everything from talking about service contracts and warranties to buying used, buying, the financing stuff, everything that goes into buying an RV. We're going to spend a lot of time on pricing too. So that's a real important area. So if you're just joining us, find the chat area. Let us know where you're watching from. That'll be fun. We'll do some shout outs here. Let us know the city that you're watching from, and we'll get rolling here. So very good. Well, I feel like buying an RV is kind of like having a baby, like, not that I know because my wife did all the hard work, but, you have like about 9 months time, you start thinking about it, figuring out your floor plan, finding the right RV. And it's, more challenging today because there's so many people wanting to do this. So, but at the end of it, just like having a baby, like, you forget all the pain that you went through to get it. Once you start having memories, the families are, your friends, you're gathering around campfires, you just kind of forget about all that. So that's why I think this is kind of a fun analogy that we're going to be working through today. So Michelle, thanks for joining us from Texas. And we have Carl down in South Carolina. I know there's some others that are watching too. But yeah, the chat area, we're going to record this. So if you miss it or have to duck out early or want someone else to see it, we'll send you an email with a link, and we'll get you a replay about 2 hours afterwards. So look for an email about 2 hours afterwards. It'll have a replay link for this whole webinar. Tim's in Connecticut, so you guys are all over the place. This will be fun. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, this is what we want it to be interactive. So we're going to dive in, though. Expect hidden fees. I mean, sad to say, we have to warn you guys about this, but this is pretty common amongst all dealerships, pretty much, And they all have fees, let's say, but they're not hidden, if they tell you about them up front or when you go to sign that sales agreement. But I want to make sure you guys ask. One, make sure you get a sales agreement. Have you seen, Mycah, have you talked to people that they're like, oh, I just put a deposit down. I got so excited that I threw a deposit down, didn't ask for anything in writing. Have you seen people do that?
Yeah. Yep. They'll usually, they'll have a couple fees on there, kind of like we do. We got a couple fees on there, and then they'll get hit with some ones later, like PDI fees and such.
Yeah. Bring that. Thanks for bringing that up. Let's pop in. Here's a little list of some of the fees. There'll be more, but just so you don't have to write this down, look in the chat area. I'm going to post a one-page PDF for you. So it'll be free over here in the chat area right about now. So look for that. It's called 5 Hidden Fees. It's a free PDF. You can download it whenever, but that way you don't have to write all this down. And you'll have this. But you mentioned PDI. So explain what that is.
Yeah, so that's a pre-delivery inspection. So every dealer should be PDIing their units from the factory, just making sure that their customers are taken care of, their units are in tip-top shape, and there's not problems as soon as the customer gets it. So some dealers will actually charge for a PDI fee. Sometimes it's set, sometimes it fluctuates based on what they find wrong with the unit. And like us, we don't charge a PDI fee. We do it, and that's that.
Yeah, let me explain. So you're with RV Wholesalers. The owners of RV Wholesalers asked me, they said, hey, Tim, and I produce a lot of like big virtual RV shows for the industry and for RV Wholesalers. But they asked the owners, they were school teachers, and they're like, Tim, we need you to help educate folks. Like, we're seeing so many people being taken advantage of. Let's we can only sell a few thousand RVs at RV Wholesalers. So let's help everybody, since there's going to be like, what, 600,000 sold this year or something crazy. So obviously everyone needs to know the truth about buying an RV. And so that's the motivation for us today. And Mike, I appreciate you taking time to help us with that. So yeah, so I'm not on staff at RV Wholesalers, but so this will be fun for us to dive in. But I've been to the factory and done a lot of things with cameras. Every few months we're in Elkhart and doing all kinds of stuff. So we've kind of got a good pulse on what's going on out there. So PDI, and like Mycah was saying, I mean, that inspection is real intense, and you're going to want that inspection. I kind of think it's like a kind of the second quality control inspection. So the factory makes your RV, they send it across the road, kind of road test it. I call it the road test. They get it to a dealership, say it's like Joseph. Hey, thanks for joining us, Joseph, down in Palm Beach. It goes all the way to Florida, gets to a dealer down there.
Nicer weather down there.
I know. Up in Cleveland, Mycah, you're what, near Columbus, about 45 minutes northwest, Lakeview, Ohio, where our Wholesalers is. So yeah, it's stinking cold up here. But anyways, so this trailer gets to Florida, thankfully, and some trim pieces, maybe the screw didn't go in the right spot, pops off, whatever. The factory pays the dealership to go through these things and inspect them and make sure that everything's under warranty is covered, and they fix it, and it's a brand new, in good working condition trailer when you go to pick it up and purchase it. So that's called the like you said, the PDI. But definitely something you want to happen. But man, I just have a problem with dealerships charging money for that. It's almost like double dipping. I don't know. It's like they're getting twice what they're due, because they're getting it from the factory, the money, and then they're charging the customer for the same thing. And how much, what kind of fees do you see tied to this?
I've seen anywhere from $500 up to $2,000. All kind of varies just based on the dealership and kind of what their system is.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Even like the big chain, I think $1,400 or $1,600 is pretty common when one really big chain of RV dealerships. So yeah, so make sure you ask, and don't be afraid to ask. Like, hey, when you're signing that sales agreement, it's like, make sure you ask, like, what does it include PDI fee? Another one is similar. It's called a walkthrough fee. You see people charging for that, which is crazy. It's like, okay, so someone at that dealership is going to spend an hour and a half with you to make sure that you understand all the systems, how they work. And just a little note on that, take your iPhone or your cell phone and videotape it, because you get down to the park the next weekend, you're like, what did that guy say? How do I light the pilot? Like, I have to purge the line. Like, how do I do that? It's like, just watch the video. But no, so, but they'll charge for these walkthroughs where they explain all that stuff. And, in some dealerships that can be another $1,000 or whatever they want to charge. So ask about these fees. Is it going to include PDI? Is it going to include a walkthrough? And just be blunt with them. You want to know up front. You don't want these to be surprises. And that's kind of how a lot of these happen, isn't it? Like, Mycah, people come in, they've got their family with them. They get a call saying, hey, your RV's been cleaned and it's ready for you to pick it up. And you come in. They usually do the walkthrough first, so you're all excited about it. Then they take you in to sign the final paperwork. And if you financed it and all that kind of paperwork too, you start going through the paperwork. And then it's usually, as they get through towards the end of all that process, that they start hitting some of these fees. Oh, by the way, there was an extra $1,200 for the PDI, and there was this, and you're like, doc and title, and like, what? Like, I'm not paying that. Well, what are you going to do at that point? It's like, you're kind of at the mercy. Your kid's already in love with the trailer. You've waited months to get it. If you ordered it, you've, it's kind of a bad situation for you. Like, gives you no leverage as a buyer, because and they can honestly, and a lot of times they'll say like, well, that's fine. We'll give you back your deposit, which they didn't even used to do that, but now they do because the demand is so high. We'll give you back your deposit. It's no problem. We have 3 other people that actually want this RV, have requested something very similar to this. I can call them today. They'll probably we'll sell it tomorrow at this price. So no worries. And they're legitimately, I mean, that's probably the truth. Like they probably can sell it like right away. So it's like, well, do I want to wait all that time, or do I just bite the bullet and pay the extra $3,000 that I was not expecting to pay? Yeah. So we don't want you to be surprised. So,
Yep.
A couple other ones here. Yeah.
Transportation fee.
Yeah. Explain how that works, because this is a little, and I think when you're comparing one dealership, say in California versus one in Ohio, or Tim's in Connecticut.
Yeah, so like our transportation fee, what we call factory freight, is what gets the camper from the manufacturer to the dealership. So ours is $570 to get it from the manufacturer to our dealership. But there might be one in like Yuma, Arizona. I'll actually be out there in June.
Yeah.
But it might be $2,500 out there. It all depends on the location and stuff like that. So that's going to be the one that varies. But that's,
you can kind of figure out, think about this. Most, 95% of RVs are built in Elkhart, Indiana. So you can kind of just go on maps and put in Elkhart, Indiana, and then to your location. So like Laura in Yuma, Arizona, she finds out, okay, I'm 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles, whatever it is. Then, there's going to be a fee, because that dealer's paying a transportation company, like you said, to get that RV from here to there. So they're going to have to add that fee on. So they're going to up the price by, say it's $2,500 to Arizona. And those rates change daily. It's like with the gas prices, you guys know that. But so say it's $2,500, but if you're looking at buying an RV in Ohio right next to the factory, like you said, a few $100s away from the factory, then you would think that price would be, $2,000 or something like that. So don't forget, like there's somebody's paying for that transportation. So you need to know like what that amount is, so that you can so you can really compare apples to apples when you're price shopping. So don't just think, like I'm going to get the best deal if I do this. But what you got to watch is that they're not charging like $5,000, or like in California. I mean, it's very common to see them tack on a $10,000 fee related to transportation to get it there. So their price may be $10,000 more or whatever, just because they had to pay $3,000 to get it out to California. I'm just
yeah, and transportation fees, those are actually non-taxable. So,
yeah, good point.
If it's above the tax line, if that dealership is rolling it into their cost or overall cost, or they're putting it above the tax line, you're actually being taxed on that dollar amount. So, like in our case, our factory freight fee is actually below the tax line. So we're saving you it's $570, whatever your tax rate is. If it's 8%, then it's saving you a couple bucks. But
on sales tax, yeah, so that's a good point. Yeah, make sure you guys ask for them to separate that out, because you don't want to pay sales tax on that transportation piece. So there's
especially if you're out in Arizona or California or whatever, because $4,000 at 9.25%, 8.25%, that adds up quite a bit. So
yeah. That's good. Another thing too, I know some people ask, like, where do you pay sales tax on these? Of course, it's usually in basically where your residence is, the county of your permanent residence or your main residence. So
yes. So I'll go through like the people that we have here. So like Carl down in Charleston, South Carolina. South Carolina is a $500 tax for there. Texas, we're not required to collect for Texas, but South Carolina we are, and that's just $500 flat dollars. Connecticut, I don't think so. Yeah, we don't have to collect for Connecticut. Florida, we do collect 6%. In Arizona, we collect 5.6%. So we collect that much, and then if there's anything due above that, then that's all you would pay when you got to the DMV.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That's really helpful. Thanks. Good stuff. Talking title, we talked about that. Tire replacement. I mean, some of these other fees we're not going to go into a lot, but I mean, we just see weird things like you're going to
come up with something to make more money.
Yeah, it's just a little extra profit margin for them. We see it a lot of times with shows too. Like I always thought, like, oh man, let's go to RV show. We'll get these guys competing against each other. I can probably find my best price there. Then I realized, like, and we just. I was just at a show. It wasn't an RV show, but man, I helped set it up, and I was like, oh my goodness, like they were charging me for electric, for internet. I mean, we're talking hundreds of dollars for every spot that we had. I mean, it was just like, oh my goodness. And then you start thinking about, okay, we've got to get staff there, and we have to pay for meals and overnights, and we've got to pay for the getting these things washed once we drive them across the road. And then we got to pay 2 sets of transportation. Our transportation guys have to take them there, bring them back, go back up, pick them up, go back. It's like 4 trips. All the rental space for the actual exhibits for these giant, 40-foot trailers, on these inside a convention center. So it adds up to $100,000+ easy for these shows when you start having 10, 12 trailers. So these dealers, when they do these shows, they have to make up that. And a lot of times they'll do it in these hidden fees. Oh, hey, they'll get together and they'll say, hey, let's just have a show fee that will, it's part of our PDI. Let's, we kind of all do that, and we'll make up our expenses. So shows are great. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I think they're great for, going, figuring out your floor plan, figure out what works for you, touch and feel, and get the quality that you want. And look at that and see what works. So, and pick out your colors and all that kind of stuff. So I would just make sure you shop around before you, go online, even rvwholesalers.com and check prices and stuff. And a lot of times, since to be honest with you, like 70% of all the parts inside an RV come from one manufacturer called Lippert. And Lippert basically supplies the chassis, the electronics, the appliances, like pretty much, like I said, 70% of the parts. So there's not a lot of variation between the different, brands. A lot of time, and sometimes you'll find like you may be looking at the two, and you're like, man, this is very similar. It may actually be made in the same factory. They just put a different sticker and a name on it. And one dealership sells this brand, and another dealership sells the exact same floor plan, same model, just with a different name, and that's how it works. So right. Don't get too hung up on, I would focus more on figuring out what floor plan really fits your needs, and then kind of the basics. Do I need fiberglass? Do I want aluminum siding? Some of the basics, and then just kind of work your way from there. And you can always change. I mean, right now it's so easy to sell these things a year or two later and make money, and and if you buy it at the right price. So it's not that big a deal. We already talked about getting out the door price. We didn't talk about this, and this is something new in the last couple of years: price increases.
Yep.
Man, can you talk about what you're seeing on your end as far as how often price increases are happening? And I mean, we see it happening all around, but what about the RV industry?
Yeah, so we actually have the Coachman rep at our store today. So I was kind of talking with them and stuff like that. But before 3 years ago, it was 1, maybe 2 price increases a year for a couple $100, few $100, $700-$800, something like that. Yes, June, you can watch this later. So before it was like $700 or $800, 1 or 2 times a year, and now it's 3 to 5% every 60 to 90 days. So they do add up quick, especially the higher the price of the trailer, the more it's going to cost on those price increases.
I'm typing to June here. We're going to send a link, and also the download the file will be in there to the download. Okay. So, so those price increases, they will, what I've noticed is that a lot of dealerships have changed their service, their contracts, their sales agreements. Now they added in a little clause in the back, and I want to make sure you guys are aware of this so that you ask about it, look for it. But basically, they are saying that this is the price of your RV, and then in the fine print, subject to factory price increases, or this price may change subject to factory price increases, something like that. Yep. It'll be worded differently for every.
And we actually have, so we price protect all of our travel trailers, fifth wheels, park models, stuff like that. So your price is locked in once you order one, or once you buy one that's on the lot somewhere.
Which makes sense. Like that's
right.
Like I can't imagine like going to any other industry. Like even if I went to Walmart before Christmas and did a layaway, I'm like, okay, It's on sale for $500. I give them a commitment, a sales agreement that says I will pay $500 for it. They put it in layaway, and I come back, I pay for it. If I came back and paid for it, and they're like, oh, well, you know what? The price went crazy. Everybody wanted these, so now we're selling them for $700. You owe us $700. Like, I would never put up with that in any other industry. Like, I don't understand how dealerships, don't get me started here, but I don't understand how dealerships can do that. Like, so I'm proud of you guys for doing the price protection thing, and I think that's the way it should be done. But
yeah, and motorhomes are kind of that one exception, just because they are $200,000, and price increase on a $200,000 trailer could be, or a $200,000 motorhome's $10,000, $15,000 every 60 to 90 days. So, so that's one thing that we do adjust that price. But we have a lot of options for you as far as, you know, all your deposits are non-refundable on the motorhomes. And so we make it easy for the customer and give them a lot of options, but also we let them get in line, and we always give them a call before it even shows up on our lot and say, hey, this is the price of it. If you want it, great.
And I should explain, because I've been at the factories. The factory, okay, say June, our friend, who's hopefully going to get to hear this later. Say June goes and puts in an order, finds the perfect RV that she wants, orders the custom colors, everything that she wants it to be, waits several months for it to be built, and she puts down the deposit. The factory or the dealership orders it from the factory. The factory's building it, and then what happens is on these is the factory doesn't charge the dealership until it rolls off the line. So that's when it's actually paid for by the dealership, is when that RV comes off the line before it heads over to that dealership. They make a payment transfer at that moment. So that's why, even though that whole process took 5 months or whatever it is, just say 5 months from the time that she agreed to buy it for $100,000. Well, that may be $105,000 when it rolls off the line. And so the dealership's like, I'm not eating that, and I'm passing it on to the customer. The problem that I find, and that's why I'm glad you guys do the price protection thing, is that how do you prove, as a customer, how do I prove that dealership really did have to pay that much price increase? Was it really a $5,000 price increase, or was it a $2,000, or was it a $500 price increase? Yes, it's price increases, but how do you, there's no way to know, because I don't even know that the dealers know, because there's so much going on the back end in the back office. Like, hey, if we sell 10 of these in a year, then we'll get a rebate from the factory at the end of the year. And, they don't know, there's no way, I don't think, that they can say, hey, we just got charged $5,000 extra. We're going to charge the customer $5,000 extra. So there's no way to prove it. So that's why I think it'd be good if you guys can figure out how to do it.
And then Tim Hatcher, are you asking about a motorhome frame or suspension, or are you asking about like a travel trailer fifth wheel type of unit there? Because for the most part, all the frames on the travel trailers, fifth wheels, and stuff like that are all the same. They're all pretty much the same. You get some, so you get some variation in the motorhomes, but they're all, for the most part, like on a Ford F350, F450 chassis, stuff like that. I think the Ford motorhomes are on the F53 chassis, so those are all pretty standard. And then you got some Nexus units, which are on an international chassis. The Nexus
is
pretty comfortable.
Yeah, that I've been impressed with the Nexus, the solidness. Anyways, but you guys, I'll put up, Mycah, if you don't mind, I'll put up your contact information here in a little bit. Yeah, and you guys can talk offline and help them out with some more detail. So I'll get that to you. I appreciate you taking time to do this with us. Let's keep moving along. Invoice price and MSRP. Let's explain that real quick. I hate to spend so much time on pricing, but this is where they get, this is where you get taken advantage of if you're not careful. So a lot of people ask, like, how much off of the MSRP, and man, I don't know if you've seen this like I have, but anytime I go through a brand new RV, like at your place or other places, half the time they don't come from the factory with a sticker. It's not like the car industry. Like car industry is real regulated. So the government says, hey, this is how much the dealership pays for it. You have to put that on a sticker, and you have to put the gas mileage, and these are things you have to do. It's not like that in the RV industry. So they really don't have the MSRP number is kind of a made up number, to be honest. A lot of dealerships kind of make up whatever number they want to put it at. The factory doesn't really say like this is the MSRP, and it changes so much because of all the different accessories. So it's really hard for them to track and put it. But they do give the dealership a number that obviously that they have to pay for it. That's never published, but the closest thing is the MAP price, which is a more solid number. I think MAP stands for minimum advertised price. So a MAP, basically they're not allowed to advertise it under this price, or they're in really big trouble. They really do watch this, because the dealership will cut them if they're listing it online for, hey, we sell this for $40,000 and the MAP price is $50,000. That's a big problem. So like even like on rvwholesalers.com, like a lot of times they don't have prices on there because you have to have a relationship. So you have to submit a quote request within seconds. Then once they have your information, they're allowed by the dealership to show you a lower price than their MAP price. So
yeah, and I get that question all the time with customers who said, well, my local dealer, their price is all over their website. They must be, willing to give that price out. So because you guys aren't showing your prices, your prices must be way higher, and there's probably something shady going on there. But it's just one of those things that's set by the manufacturer, and we can't advertise for lower price than that. And a lot of times we're thousands of dollars cheaper than the minimum advertised price. So
so that's MAP, but MSRP, like you'd be surprised like how many dealers are selling close to this fake, MSRP number. I mean, way up there. So there's a really big chasm between prices. So yeah, just do your homework. Make sure you know what you're comparing apples to apples, like we said, and you'll be fine. So, and if you have questions, like you get into something like, even if it's, totally unrelated to RV wholesalers, like don't be afraid to ask Mycah. He's here to help you guys too. So run numbers by him, whatever. Quality. This was kind of a big question I had. So going into factories, I'm like, oh my goodness, knowing that, the demand is crazy. So the factories are just barely, keeping up. So that, they're backlogged. So I figured, I went down to the factory. I'm like, oh my goodness, like they probably have 3 shifts running. They probably brought people from all over the country are just living in, little temporary housing, just, crank these things out. I couldn't believe that. When I went to the factories, they're like, oh no, Tim, like no way. Like we just run one big shift. We get ready for it the night before, and then we run it early in the morning till mid-afternoon, 2:33, and then we just shut down, get ready for the next morning's run. And we are not like and they're rural communities, so they're not like big cities with just a big pool of workers. These guys have been like there for years, family, like you'll see a dad working next to his son in these factory lines, and they've worked there for, dad's been there 25, 30 years and doing the same stuff. I mean, it's like, they're craftsmen. They build these things. They're like houses really built, on these frames. So it's not like robots, assembling all these things. And but I was impressed that they had actually cut back a lot of floor plans before, I'd say almost half the floor plans they used to have. I mean, they used to have so many. So I thought that was helpful, like a good idea, like cut them back. And then we can run longer runs. Cause they used to, when I'd be in there a few years ago, I'd see like every 2 hours, a different floor plan going down the line. I'm like, how do these guys keep it all straight? Cause it's not like they have blueprints and they're, they just know, because they've been there so long. I'm like,
well, and I, before I started selling RVs, I actually came from the RV manufacturing business.
Okay. I forgot about that.
My dad worked there, 6 years before I did.
Okay.
So, I built Class A motorhomes, and every hour and a half on my line, we would have a line roll, and the next unit would come down the line, and I might be working on a 35M, and the next one I might be a 44H. I don't know.
But isn't that that wasn't that easier to make mistakes back then, like when it's that many changing that fast?
No, it's a lot of work of just, you walk in, you have everything's laid out for you. So you got your PO number, your production order number, and all your stuff that you need for that unit's already laid out for you essentially. And you go in there and everything's pretty much built the same. It's just put in different places. And for the most part, hour and a half, you're moving on to the next coach, and that's that. But yeah, I mean, they're all built the same. And they never really sped up their production. A lot of other manufacturers actually opened up alternate plants to help meet demand and hire in some more people. But yeah, I mean, it's 6 a.m. to 2:30, 6 a.m. to 4:30, something like that. Yeah, I mean,
no, that's good. Yeah, so between that and then like 2022, I was expecting all these model changes. They're like, sorry, Tim, like we didn't really change anything this year. We were like, with all the shortages and stuff, like, let's just go with what we know works. Let's not bring in the added risk of, oh, we might not be able to get this or it may not work. Let's not even mess with that right now while we're stressed with getting as many as we can built. So I don't think quality has gone down at all. Like, may even got a little better actually.
Yeah, they switched to what they call batch runs. So before, like you and I were saying, they used to do product one, then they would do product two, and then product one, product three, and it just kept kind of alternating, I guess. Yeah. Whereas now it's like, okay, we got 40 orders for product one, we're going to run 20 of those, then we're going to run 40 of the product two, and so they continually run the same product over and over and over again. So then they move to the next one. So makes it way more streamlined and usually higher quality.
Yeah, no, that's been good. Sometimes people are thinking about, hey, should I buy a new? Should I buy used? I'm going to put up a poll. I want to know if this will be your first time buying an RV or if this is the second time. So take a look at this. Let us know what you do, and I'll give us the results here in a second. But yeah, buying used. I thought until I started taking some of these trailers out to the campground, and one of my friends pulled in beside us with a motorhome, or not a motorhome, it was a travel trailer, but it matched almost the exact same floor plan as the travel trailer that we brought in brand new, borrowed from you guys. And so we're camping, they came over and their kids loved it. Like, hey, this is just like ours, same layout and everything. They're like, hey, how much does this cost? And when I told them the price, their jaw dropped, because it was like $500 less than they paid for a used one like 3 years prior. Like, you could have had a brand new one, with all the Bluetooth speakers and all the bells and whistles, but anyway, so make sure you do your homework, check on new before you inherit someone else's issues. But if you are buying used, I have a couple pointers that will help with that. And it looks like so far the poll is about 50-50. So like half of you, this will be your first time. Half of you, you don't want to make the same mistake twice. So you're here. No, hopefully we can help you. But yeah, avoid getting a lemon. So inspectors, this kind of got cut off here, but inspectors are a good idea if you're buying a used one. Third-party inspectors, here's a couple: nrvia.org or Lemon Squad. These are just two guys, pay them $300-400. They come out, spend a couple hours like really looking over this thing. The biggest thing with buying used, make sure you look for water damage, and because that can really kill. I know our maintenance guy that I talked to, he's like, yeah, Tim, the number one thing I see that totals these things out, like for insurance and all that, is water. Like, someone will not seal the roof on a regular basis. They'll get little cracks around their vents or things, which is super easy to fix with a caulk gun. But if you skip that for a few years, water can get in there, rolls down the ceiling, goes down the walls, goes down on the floor. Basically, it takes out all the, since they're, material that, once water hits, they expand and fall apart, whatever, different things. So watch out for water damage. The other place that water damage can get you is if it has a lot of slides and they get a damage, like a tree branch gets caught and rips a hole in the slide, and then you park it all winter in the rain and snow melting, and then you get water damage that way. So For 50, 60 bucks, what I recommend is go to Home Depot or Lowe's, buy a moisture meter. It's like money well spent. That thing will look through like vinyl flooring. It'll look through the plastic on a shower and tell you if the wall behind it's been damaged with water or holding moisture. So you can go over the whole thing. It'll tell you exactly where moisture issues are happening if there are. So that's a good way to prevent getting the lemon on the used side. So hopefully you don't have to worry about that, but I just wanted to give you some pointers on that. Oh, goodness. Here's my first RV trip. My dad actually built this one, so we probably did have some water damage. Actually, it held up pretty well. But I'll never forget, we were up in British Columbia, Canada, going on this trip. This huge tree falls over the road, and I remember waking my mom up like, I want to sleep inside the RV, because we were in this little lean-to that was that we had built. And so I was like, I slept in the RV for the rest of the night. Wake up in the morning, my brothers find like these huge bear tracks around our campsite. And so I'm like, man, now I look back and I'm like, RVs saved my life. Like I have this special place for RVing. So ever since I was a little kid. So anyways, but yeah, you want to get the most for your trade-in, but how do you do that, Mycah? Like, what do you recommend?
Yeah. So there's a few ways to do it. Right now is a lot of people are trading their camper in for a new one, and you can get pretty good value for it there. You're going to get your best value though if you sell it outright. Now, a lot of people don't have time to sell it outright and go through the whole process of entertaining buyers and stuff like that. But Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, RV Trader, those are a few of the big ones that a lot of people use to sell their campers on. There's tons of Facebook groups out there. I know we had some people in here from Connecticut and South Carolina. I'm a part of some camping Facebook groups from those states that I actually sell campers on. So it's just, there's so many options out there for you. But if you don't have the time, you don't have the willpower, I guess, to sell yours on your own, then definitely trading in and trading in for a new one is a good way to go.
No, that's cool. Some good resources. So, I mean, you think about it, it's like the dealers, if you let them do the, if you just trade it in and the dealer makes all that money, they have to give you a lot lower price because they have to pay commission for the salespeople. They have to take the risks. They have to still make money on the whole thing. It's like, oh yeah, no, it's
just
good.
Look at the bottom dollar of the deal. So, I mean, if you're getting, I have had all the time where I'll give somebody $17,500 for their trade in and another dealer's giving them $18,500. But bottom line is that the other dealers, after the trade-ins, charging the customer for the new camper $25,000, and I'm charging $22,000.
Like a little game. Like,
yeah.
I take it from here. I take it from here.
Yep.
Yeah. So that is just a game. Know the big dealer finance secret. So, okay, guys, if you get nothing else out of this, I had no idea this was going on the finance side, and this is like golden right here. There is real money here. So tell us what this is, because I want folks to make sure they understand what's going on behind the scenes on the finance side. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So whenever you finance even a recreational vehicle, four-wheeler, ATV, boat, even a car, cars are usually smaller dealer reserves, but every time that you finance something from these dealerships, the bank that they go through actually gives that dealership a dealer reserve. And a lot of times for like cars, it might be $500 to $600, $700. They just pocket that money. It's part of their revenue. But the recreational vehicle is actually a lot more. So like RVs, it could be anywhere from $2,000 all the way up to $10,000.
I thought it was like a few $100 when I first heard about it. So yeah, like you said, it's a dealer reserve, or I call it a kickback, but it's basically the bank thanking the dealership for doing the paperwork and bringing a customer to them. So they give them this thank you. Like you said, cars, $500, $600, maybe $1,000, $1,500, because it's a shorter period of loan and different things. RVs, bigger, longer loans, more money they can give the dealership back. So dealerships really make a lot of money in this area. A lot of dealerships, not all of them, but a lot of them. This is kind of their secret honeypot. Like this is where they go, and that's why they really want you to finance with them and different things. So I think that's this is an area where you need to ask how much. How would you word it? How much of that dealer reserve can you give? Like when you start getting to the point, you kind of hold that card like, I may or may not finance. Don't throw that card out there like, yeah, I'm definitely going to finance with you.
Like for me, I'm looking at a new car right now, and I know for sure that when I go in there and I'm going to finance it, I'm going to let them give me the price and say, well, how much more can you do off on that? I'm going to let them kind of dictate that a little bit. Tell me, we can do another $500 off for you. Okay, well, how about you give me the reserve that you guys are going to get, and then I'll sign these papers and we'll be good to go. Most normal salespeople don't know about it. Some of the even sales managers don't know about it.
Yeah.
But the finance managers and usually people that deal with that stuff on a daily basis, collect the invoices, get the closing paperwork, all that stuff. They tend to know a little more about that stuff because they're dealing with that number every day.
Yeah. And the way it works is the dealership doesn't get that money back from the bank until about 9-12 months, usually 12 months later. Once they know that you've made 12 payments, then this nice little check comes. And I remember the owners of RV Wholesalers, in fact, I have a video, but I remember the owners of RV Wholesalers saying like, man, the first time, like 20 some years ago when they did a deal with a bank, a finance deal, all of a sudden a check arrived and they're like, what is this for? Like, what? They called the bank up and like, why did we got some extra money here? And they're like, oh no, that's for you guys as a thank you. And they're like, well, that didn't seem right. It didn't sit well with them back in the day. And so they decided like, hey, the customer's paying all that interest. Like, let's find a way to give it back to the customer. And that's what I know you guys call it. What dealer, what do you call it? Or no, the finance discount.
Yes.
Where you take that money and then what do you do with it?
So we give that back to the customer in the form of discount. So it's basically just our kickback that we get from the bank. We give that back to you. And I just put a link in the chat there. So you'll see a couple videos there about kind of how it works and how the owners of the company, how they first discovered it, because they had no idea either until they got a random check. But there's a couple videos there that you can watch and kind of gets their perspective of it and how they were just like, I don't know what to do this $2,500 check. It's,
Yeah. So I know there's some people too that have been saving a long time, been really careful with their money, have no desire to waste money on interest, which can't blame you there. And just want to pay cash for an RV, sold a house, whatever. There's a way to do it. And we'll kind of tell you how that works real quick here, just so you know that you can do that. If you want to explain, what would you do?
Yeah.
You want to pay cash, but you still want to be able to take advantage of getting this money from the bank legally.
Yeah. So say you get a $4,000 finance discount. That's like I said, that's our dealer reserve. We give that back to you. So you get a $4,000 financing discount. You'd rather pay cash, but you don't want to pass up to $4,000. What all my customers have done that want to pay cash is they'll actually just finance with us. They'll save the $4,000. And then when the first payment comes, they pay everything off except for like the last 11 payments. So say their payment's $200 a month, they'll pay everything off except for $2,200. So now your interest is all calculated off of that $2,200 versus $25,000, $30,000, and it's all simple interest. So pay $150, $200 in interest. But you'll save that $4,000. So
yeah, so
walking out ahead,
way $200 to get $4,000. Not a bad gig.
Yeah, and I mean your local bank's not going to give you the any financing discounts or anything like that. So even if you get approved at your local bank for 2.5%, 3.5%, it's actually advantageous to finance with us through a true recreational loan, save the $4,000, and just refinance it after that year. So, I mean, there's all sorts of ways to do it, and still take advantage of that finance discount.
And you can always move your loans around. So even
Yep.
at a dealership after that 12 months, you can, refinance it basically, if you had a better way of your uncle's going to give you money or whatever, like, you
Yep.
can always, move things around. But yeah, definitely take advantage of that. That's a great way to get some extra dollars. So, and hopefully that will help you guys beyond just RVs, like you said, cars, motorcycles, boats, anything that you finance. Know that dealership is getting money back. So I wish I would have known that a long time ago. I wasted a bunch of money. So prepare for service needs. This is kind of interesting. It's not really, and we're going to talk about warranties, service contracts real briefly here at the end. But making sure that you have a game plan for how this thing's going to be taken care of, because it's not really a matter of if it'll ever break. It's more of at what point, when is something going to break and I have to get it fixed. So just, make plans for that in advance so that you're not caught off guard and find a dealership that's not going to really take care of you. I always thought, and I'm up here in Cleveland. And so if I buy an RV, say at my local dealership here in Cleveland, and I, and it breaks down, it's not going to break down here in Cleveland, Ohio. It's probably going to break down when our family's actually in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, or in the Smoky Mountains, like where we like to go, or up in Michigan when we're camping up there. It's like the likelihood of it breaking right here by me is kind of slim. So I played the scenario, and I want you guys to play scenarios with your when you're thinking about buying these with the people that you're buying from. It's like, so and this is how my scenario would play out. So for example, I'm in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. My wife and I, we just got down here on vacation. First night of our vacation, is super hot and humid down here. Kids just got out of school. We're all together. The air conditioner doesn't work on my RV, or it quits working. I call up you as my local dealer here in Ohio, and this is what I hear on the phone. It's like, hello, yeah, we have this problem. They're like, oh, yeah, you bought it from us. Your priority, even though we have a 13-week waiting list to get in here for service, because we're really busy, as you can imagine, with all these people buying RVs.
Right.
And but we're going to move you to the front. Tim, like, we're going to put you right at the front. You're one of our best customers. You just bought from us 2 months ago. No worries. So just bring it back here, and we're going to move you right to the front of the line. Like, maybe you didn't hear me. Like, my wife is like not happy right now. You guys can figure out the rest of the scenario, but
yeah, I mean, we just had a guy, one of our shop guys, drive all the way up to Port Clinton, Ohio, which is,
oh yeah,
I don't know, 2.5 hours away from us to fix an awning. So we just signed a deal with the state parks in Ohio. So, I mean, we can definitely take care of everybody in the state of Ohio, and then obviously with our nationwide service network.
Yeah, explain that, because that's what I was realizing as, and this is something that's going to be important. Make sure you have a plan, because, like I said, you don't camp where you buy a lot of times. So make sure you have a plan, and explain what you guys do, because I think it's pretty cool. What do you call it? The nationwide service network.
Nationwide service network. Yep. So over the last 25 years when we've been in business, we've kind of developed relationships with these other dealers, mom and pop shops, handymen around the country, like 2,500 of them, 2,600 of them. And anywhere that a customer is camping at, we probably have somebody close by that can get that customer fixed up. Obviously, more populated areas, Florida, California, there's a ton of them in like Phoenix area, in Arizona. More populated areas have a lot of options for you, even mobile techs at times.
Yeah. And, so what do they do? Like, so in my scenario, I break down, I call your concierge number, and then what happens basically?
Yeah. So our service and warranty department will get your location, and then they will basically find these other service centers that are close to you. And they'll say, okay, well, you got X, Y, and Z out here. We're going to give them a call, see how quickly they can get you in. And they basically move you to the front of the line, as if you bought the camper from them, and that's kind of unheard of in the RV industry.
Yeah, because it's not like cars where it's kind of like that dealership is required to fix any Ford that comes into that Ford dealership. It's not like that with RVs. Like, no, it's their customers. They can do whatever they want. So
right.
It's nice.
Basically what it turns into is say you go to a dealership, they might say, yeah, we'll get you in 8 months. But if they start to get real busy around month 5 or 6, well, it might be another 5 months before you get in. They just keep pushing you back until they have a free slot for you to get into. It
sounds like you're just making up numbers, but sadly, those are real numbers. Yep. You would hope that it's not that backed up, but it really is backed up. It's kind of crazy right now. So that's why it's important to ask these questions ahead of time. So very good. Service contracts, are they worth it? That's one of the questions I always, like when I deal with electronics or buying something at the store, go to check out and they're like, oh, it'll be an extra $30. Do you want to add a 3-year warranty on that? I always thought, run from that. Like, don't say yes to that. After I started driving these campers around, I think I realized like that might not be a bad idea to have a extended service contract on an RV. Like if anything, that, and I've been a big fan of like buying them when you buy a brand new house. Like I've had so much luck, like getting new air conditioners and stuff that break in the first year or two, even if it's just, for a few years. But yeah, in the RV industry, even more so because you think about it, you're like taking all those appliances and you're like, down the road every day, every week or whenever you're moving them around. And so it's definitely something to consider, something to budget for if you can. I mean, 5, 6, 7% of your total price, maybe budget for a good service contract. So I wanted to make sure you guys understand what a good service contract is. To me, it's one that pays the bills. Like, you want something that when there's a claim, they actually pay it, not like, oh, there's a loophole, you forgot about this. And don't believe, and Mike would never say this, but if Mycah says to you, and he's one of the sales reps, he's like, oh, he makes you feel like, oh yeah, we have this service contract. It's basically bumper to bumper coverage, like you'll be taken care of. Like, make sure you read the contract because there is no such thing as a bumper to bumper service agreement. So your sales guy's blowing smoke at that point. And a lot of times, like, we hear what we want to hear, So he may not have actually said it. He said it's kind of like, or like he probably had some loophole in there. Mike would never do this, so I'm just picking on you, Mycah. But yeah, make sure you realize like service contracts are never bumper to bumper in this world. There's a lot of loopholes. So there's basically 2 types. There's one called a stated. Stated coverage is a service contract that states exactly what's covered on that RV motorhome. And it's different from motorhomes because engines and different things. So stated is a pretty popular. Good Sam, some of those guys sell stated. A lot of them have both. But the stated one is not really the one that pays the bills as well as the kind of the opposite, which is exclusionary. Exclusionary contract is written, meaning the whole camper is covered, everything is covered, excluding this item, this item, this item, brake pads, which are wear and tear things, like stuff like that. That's kind of wear and tear, could be, it's more at the mercy of how you take care of it. Those kind of items. That's what they don't cover. So that's your best coverage. So if you can pay a few extra dollars and get that, that's the one that I see like really paying the claims. And I actually live like 5 minutes from one of the big RV service contract companies, United States Warranty, and some of these places. So I've talked a lot to these guys, and I know how these things work. And I just want to make sure you're aware, because back on the stated, the one that I'm not a big fan of. And sometimes these dealerships will charge the same amount of money as the opposite. But a stated, what you have to watch for, and make sure you read like every line. Just spend a night before you sign this contract. Spend a night going through it, and don't feel like you have to, sign it right away. Like, don't let the pressure get to you. You have a little bit of time. But as you're going through the stated, be aware that sometimes if it's not on the list, like say an inverter isn't covered and it goes bad and it damages, say, the refrigerator that's on the list, that's covered, that becomes a loophole. So they'll say, well, the refrigerator is not covered because it was damaged by something that wasn't covered, like that went bad and it took out this. Well, now this isn't covered because it was damaged by something that wasn't covered. So there's a lot of loopholes like that on the stated. That's why the exclusionary, it's like everything's covered except for this. So it's just a better version. And there's make sure you find a good A+ rated company that's backing this whole thing up. So,
well, I mean, for instance, like our exclusionary coverages that we offer, our big one is it covers all of the electrical components, all the mechanical components, so slide seals, gaskets, anything that's electrical on the unit. It doesn't matter if that inverter causes the fridge to go out because the inverter is covered too. The fridge is covered. Everything's covered. It's not a bumper to bumper, but it does pay the bills and it does absorb pretty much all that cost. So a little more expensive, but it's more peace of mind than a stated coverage.
Yeah. And that's what, at the end of the day, that's what you need. I mean, when I started, like going camping with these things, I realized like, man, like I can't just go to Home Depot and buy a new fridge for this thing. Like this got to have 12 volt and maybe propane or, like all the stuff that goes into a special fridge. And then I started thinking about like, and maybe Mycah, you built these things, so you know this, like how in the world do I get it through the door? Like that fridge is like a full size fridge and the door is not full size door. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like they have to take a whole slide out to get this thing in there or build it before they put the roof on. Like,
yeah,
well, one of these contracts are so helpful.
It's a lot of times, I mean, it's something crazy. Like they have to take out the big panoramic window and the slide out, or take out the slide out, take off all the doors on the fridge. So it's a process, and you definitely don't want to have to pay that bill. I mean, slide seals, those are $1,500 to $2,000 just to replace slide seals, and all that takes is a stick that blew in the wind and ripped those up. So I mean, that's something that's covered in exclusionary coverage for the most part.
Yeah, make sure you ask those questions and throw scenarios like at them. And ask them like, hey, is this covered if this were to happen? Just so you know what to expect. As you're not caught off guard 2 years later when something happens and now you're mad because it's not covered, but it was your fault because you didn't read it. So good stuff. Really helpful, I hope. Mycah, here's your information. If I tell you what, since you guys, I have a little gift for someone, a little prize for hanging out with us. If you have been watching, take a picture of this screen right here, Mycah's contact information or his email or a screen capture, whatever's easier. And I'm going to give away this doesn't look like anything. This is a water bottle, but it's not your normal water bottle. This thing is a water bottle safe, meaning there's 2 compartments. You can fill this with water or Coke. And then there's this little compartment in here, and there's the top compartment too. You can fill that, put a new label on it if you want something different, and then you can put valuables in there when you go to the beach. So you're not like me, like stuffing them in the shoe, trying to make sure like nobody's looking, hiding all my valuables in my shoe. Like everybody doesn't do that, and so now you can have that in your cooler and nobody will know that your credit card's in there and your driver's license. So anyways, we're going to give one of these away. The first person that emails you, Mycah, want to email one of these prizes out, and we will get that to you. So so just email Mycah. And if you have any other questions, Mycah works with rvwholesalers.com, and I'm sure he'll be glad to help you, whether you're trying to sell a used one, figure out how much the thing's worth. He's got the NADA books. He can look that stuff up. Whatever it is, question-wise you have, if you want to talk more detail about different components and, whether it has solar and, all that kind of stuff, Mycah's the expert on that. But no, I appreciate you taking time, Mycah. And rvwholesalers.com, they basically have an instant quote thing where you can actually go through, build pick out the brand and model, floor plan, and then you can build out your coach or your trailer just the way you want it. And then they'll send you a text within seconds with the actual quote of that particular build. So anyways, helpful tools. If you're trying to figure out your towing capacity, towingcalculator.org is a way to figure that out real quick. Same kind of thing. But yeah, man, appreciate it. Hopefully you guys learned a lot, and we will hopefully see you camping soon. So congrats on having that little giving birth to that RV someday here soon. So
yeah, eventually when it starts warming up.
Yeah, except for half of our people are in warm states, so it's just.
I know we're like 35 degrees and half snow right now. So,
all right, you're welcome, guys. Take care and happy camping.